I'm Mouse TV, myself Theo Kane, and welcome to a brand new episode of All Figured Out. As always, this show is sponsored by Nima Studios, and we've got some Super7 ReAction 3 3/4 figures to look at today. They're the Breakin figures from Super7 ReAction 3 3/4 3.75, and they're fucking awesome. So just talking a little bit about this movie first. If you're not familiar with it, let me take you back to 1984, and at this point hip-hop was still pretty fresh. Hip-hop was still a pretty unknown thing back then. Like, people rapped, there was rapping, but it was like a weird time because it was when hip-hop was still kind of finding out what it is. So a lot of the outfits that people wear in this movie, they're like studded wristbands with crop tops and then sneakers and a bowler hat. It's a very weird time when hip-hop was still developing its style. It's when like punk was huge. Punk was a rebellious way of life. It was representing everything rebellious and anarchy. So people had mohawks and studded jackets and studded wristbands, fingerless gloves, that kind of shit. And hip-hop was still like kind of finding its feet with what it is. So people would wear a tracksuit, but then because like hip-hop was also pretty rebellious, they would wear like studded wristbands and that kind of thing. So this movie is like the perfect example of that era when hip-hop was just coming through and developing its own flavour.
Now first you all must feel that this party is for real. So listen to the glove as he so down.
It was released by the Canon company. Now, I've known about Canon all my life. I knew about it because most of my favourite movies that I used to put on would start with the Canon logo. All the old crazy VHS that I used to watch. Mostly action, mostly crazy horror, loads of like schlocky crazy stuff, but with like surprisingly big budgets. All my favourite stuff. A lot of the early Chuck Norris sequels, Death Wish sequels, Van Damme, all that kind of shit, all came out on Canon. They used to release the best movies back in the day. And there's a documentary called Electric Boogaloo, the Canon story, where it tells you all about the guys that made that and how they used to have like so many films in production, so many more than any normal studio. If a normal studio had 7 films in production, they had 20 films in production, and they were banging this shit out. And anything they saw that they thought they might be able to make a cool movie of, they did. So one of the guys at Canon, his daughter saw some breakdancers on a beach like performing with a crowd around them, and then he saw a documentary called Breakin and Entering, and in that documentary you've got Ice-T doing a bit of rapping, you've got some guys doing breakdance. So he took some of the cast and Ice-T from that movie Breakin and Entering and made the movie Breakin. And growing up, like, I was always a mad fan of hip-hop. That's why I did rap and graffiti and all this shit. But as a kid, if you're into hip-hop, there's all the different elements of hip-hop. There's DJing, there's breakdancing, there's graffiti, there's rapping, and you want to try it all as a youth. So you want to do a bit of DJing, a bit of waka waka waka, a bit of scratching. You want to do some breakdancing, graffiti, and rapping, and breakdancing. Yeah, it was no exception. We used to do that. We used to get lino and cardboard, and we used to spin on our head and try and do windmills and that kind of thing. But what was always very fucking hard is that we had no one to teach us how to do it. We just had to try and make it up. We had no like step-by-step guide. And my friend's dad, he told us about this movie. He said, there's a film called Breakin, and there's Breakin 2, and there's all these other movies, like there's Wild Style, and there's Beat Street and shit, all that came out around the same time that jumped on that hip-hop fad of the mid-80s, but Breakin was the first one, and he used, apart from that Breakin and Entering documentary, Breakin was the one that everybody knew. This is a time before you could just go on YouTube and watch tutorials on how to breakdance, or find any kind of video that showcased breakdancing like that. So as much as I'm sure that Canon like saw a fad and jumped on it and just threw out a couple of movies, in hindsight and in the long run and in the long term, these are something that really planted the foundations for lots of people that wanted to learn how to breakdance. This was their only source material to look at. The movie's all about this girl, Special K Kelly. She's a jazz dancer and she gets hooked up with these street dancers, and together they form a crew that just like takes over the breakdance scene. So these are the 3 characters. We've got Special K, and a funny thing about her is that like immediately after Breakin came out, they made Breakin 2, and she was put in a bag of movies like Grease 2 and that kind of thing. But one of the films that I remember her from is she was in Ninja 3, the Canon movie. Ninja 3, The Domination, is all about a female like possessed ninja. She's like possessed by the spirit of a ninja, and she played her. So even though she had no martial arts ability, she had sick gymnastic skills and she was a jazz dancer. So they shoehorned her into that franchise and made Ninja 3 Domination with a female lead, and it was her. Then we've got man like Ozone, and remember I was telling you that like this is a time where they were wearing like crop tops with bowler hats and trackies and studded wristbands. Like he again is a prime example of that. He's always got some crazy like bone feather in his ear with some mad choker chain around his neck and shit, doing all the mad body popping and locking. And then you've got Turbo with his Rising Sun hoodie on. He's got his sick white high tops. He's got his fingerless glove. He's got the Rising Sun bandana there on the picture. And one of the things I really love about Super 7, like one of the many things, is that the attention to detail on crazy little things that most people would never think to release a toy of, i.e. the Rocky robot in the Rocky 4 series of figures, is they've included a broom. Now, anyone that's not seen the movie would not think anything of that broom, but there's this bizarre scene in the film where, because it's like a breakdance musical, there's lots of musical segments, there's lots of segments where it goes off and there's just like a mad dance number for no other reason than to showcase some talent. Well, there's a mad scene where Turbo is dancing on his own, doing this mad moonwalk, and then all of a sudden he starts playing with this broom and then making the broom float like anti-gravity, like a fucking Jedi magician making it float. But the way the light is shining, you can see that there's fishing line holding up the broom. So even like as a kid watching this, I was like, you can see the fucking fishing line. So it was like, it's just seen as like a really fucking stupid fun scene that's in this movie, and the fact that they included him with a fucking broom is just genius. One thing that is disappointing, and I'm sure the only reason they didn't do it is because they couldn't get the likeness rights or something, but this is actually the first movie that Jean-Claude Van Damme ever had screen time in, and there's a scene where they're all breakdancing on the beach, dancing, having like a cypher, like a hip-hop cypher, and Jean-Claude Van Damme is randomly there doing some crazy dancing, doing some gyrating like he loves to do with like a black leotard kind of thing on. So like, I know for a fact they didn't miss a trick by not making that figure of Van Damme. I know for a fact they would have made it if they could get the likeness rights. So someone needs to make a custom Van Damme figure that goes within this line, that's him in the black leotard. That would be fucking awesome. It would have also been really cool to have an Ice-T figure because he's in both 1 and 2, but then in the second movie he goes like full Mad Max and he's got like a proper fruity leather vest with all studs on it and like 2 pairs of glasses, one on his hat, one on his face, rapping away. So he would have been really cool to get a figure as well, but again, I don't know where the likeness rights are with Ice-T figures. I've never seen an Ice-T figure, so it would have been sick for him to do that. Maybe they'll do a series 2 and we can get Van Damme and Ice-T and an update on all the characters from part 2. They did release like a New York Toy Fair exclusive where these were sold in a boombox, which was just fucking genius. They were in different colours and I would have loved to have got that boombox, but unfortunately over here in England we don't get access to all that New York Toy Fair like exclusives. They're only if you go to that event, so we then get these individuals, which are so fucking sick, and I guarantee these are not going to be around for long. These are like exclusives here in England, so if you want to get yourself a set of these, head over to NemaStudios.com, buy yourself a set and let them know that Slimehouse sent you. So remember, if you enjoyed this video, give it a like, subscribe to our channel, drop a little comment in the comment section, and hit the bell button if you want to get notified when we drop a new video. I'm Theo Kane, this is Slimehouse TV, all figured out, and we'll catch you in the next one, but for now, I'm gone. Pow!